This program is brought to you by Sirius Texas Barbecue. We take our meat seriously.
You're watching Durango TV News. I'm Wendy Graham-Settle. La Plata County has struggled for more than 40 years trying to accommodate growth while respecting personal property rights. County commissioners have won and lost elections over land use planning. Neighbors have battled each other over proposed developments in their backyards. And lucrative companies, along with their potential tax bases, have moved elsewhere because the county lacks adequate zoning. The clash over planning came to a head last January when the La Plata County Commissioners rolled out the first draft of new land use regulations. Hundreds of La Plata County residents crowded into the La Plata County Fairgrounds exhibit hall to protest the land use regulations, calling them an illegal attempt to rob them of their personal property rights. The outcry prompted the commissioners to fire their planning consultants and to start over from scratch. Now, the commissioners plan to look at whether the county should adopt traditional zoning or modify the current system to improve the way it manages growth and development. News Director Deborah Uroda takes a look at the two.
You're right, Wendy. Zoning has become a contentious issue for years. Now, for the first time since the 1970s, La Plata County is taking a deep, hard look at two types of zoning with the goal of streamlining the development approval process, preserving what residents value about living here, and preparing more strategically for the future. It hasn't been an easy task because we hold competing values over private property rights versus the community's right to determine where growth should occur and consequently how our tax dollars are spent on services that growth demands.
At one of the meetings we had 3 weeks ago, and this is the thing that people struggle with, is the vision was property rights of any property owner should be able to do with their property what they want. No less than 1 minute later, the same person who said, yes, that's our vision, also said the county needs to stop approving subdivisions. Well, you can't have the ability for a property owner to do anything they want and also have the county come in and stop subdivisions to help maintain the agricultural area. And just explaining to people that what we're trying to find is a balance. What's a reasonable balance of accommodating growth, promoting growth in certain areas and maybe not other areas? And where are those areas that it makes sense from the community standpoint?
The county is exploring two types of zoning, traditional Euclidean zoning and performance zoning. Euclidean zoning is the most common. In Colorado, 58 out of 64 counties use traditional zoning as a land use tool. Euclidean zoning groups similar land uses into planning areas with its own development standards that are defined up front.
It goes through a process of predetermining the types of uses that would be appropriate in certain areas, and it does it on the front end of the development review process instead of at the back end of the development review process like we have now. So what it does is it inverts the approval and review process so that property owners, both those who are looking to develop as well as those who own property and are not looking to develop, have some certainty about how their property will be used and how adjoining properties will be used.
La Plata County currently has a performance-based system that determines land use decisions on the compatibility with the surrounding area and the ability of the developer to mitigate impacts. It gives private property owners more freedom to do what they want with their land, but it lacks certainty. You can propose a high-density subdivision on your property, but there's no guarantee that it will be approved, especially if a neighbor's protest that it's not compatible with their 5-acre ranchettes.
And what our system really lacks are clear standards in order to determine whether or not a project, quote, performs as the code wants it to perform. So it is more subjective now than I think a traditional or more typical performance system would be. So that would be another option, which would be to adjust our performance system to have very clear criteria and guidelines for a project to be approved.
Our current system supports strip growth, not smart growth. It allows land uses to change based on what's next door, and it drives demand for county services, increasing costs to the taxpayer. For example, an isolated subdivision in the country increases demand on rural roads without the accompanying tax base to pay for maintenance.
Under our current process, the county can't anticipate where development's going to occur. It's a complete reactionary system. So from a budgeting standpoint, it becomes very hard to know where the development's going to go. Versus a Euclidean system, it is more planned out and it becomes more strategic with how limited funds are invested into the future. And it becomes more thoughtful, I believe.
Performance-based zoning also increases proliferation of metro districts and homeowners associations. They maintain internal roads, water, and sewer systems. Too often, those special districts are inadequately funded so that infrastructure deteriorates and homeowners either have to increase their district fees or watch their property values drop. The current system also stifles economic development because of the cost of obtaining approval for a land use change and the uncertainty of future land use changes on adjacent properties.
There was a business looking to locate in Colorado. They had some criteria and they specifically called out Durango and La Plata County, but they were looking for, one of their criteria was it had to have an industrial zoning district. And we were unable to compete for that business because we don't have zoning. And the business was 20 to 30 employees at an average salary of $70,000 a year. And that business, we can't even try to recruit that business because we don't have zoning.
Most of the resistance to traditional zoning comes from agricultural communities and from farmers and ranchers who want to preserve their way of life, but who also want the freedom to use their land to generate additional income so that they can supplement their ag operations. The county has proposed a new zoning category called Ag Plus. It would allow farmers and ranchers to develop commercial operations compatible with their industry. A number of examples already exist in the county. The Perry family at Foxfire Farms raises sheep and operates a winery. The James family on James Ranch raises beef and operates a cheese-making business, dairy, and restaurant featuring their locally grown food.
As a kid growing up, we grew up out in the country, and one of the things that we did is we had a giant meat grinder, and we would go and get chicken byproducts. And my job as a kid was to shovel them into the grinder and create little bags and put those bags on the pallet and put the pallet in the freezer. And then we would sell that to people who needed high protein animal food. And that was a way that we helped keep our farm going. And just growing up in that, understanding how many different ways there are to make money off the land and creating processes which make it easier for people to make more money off of their land and diversify their incomes. And that's what I think is so exciting about this opportunity, is to really support ag in a way that's value added.
Before the county commissioners vote on whether to adopt Euclidean zoning or fine-tune the current performance-based system, residents will be asked again for their opinion. The county will conduct a community-wide survey later this month on the options available to plan for growth. And don't doubt that growth will occur. La Plata County's population has grown by 189% since 1970. More than 60% of that growth has occurred in the unincorporated areas of the county.
What is the vision for the future? Do the residents of our community want to have strip commercial development along 550 from Durango south down to Bondad? Do they want it to maintain somewhat of the agrarian rural character that it has now? What's the vision? And that's what the county really needs to hear from people about, is how do they want our community to continue to grow? Because we're going to continue to grow, and this is a time to help set that vision.
The survey will be released in the next couple of weeks. Visit co.laplata.co.us for more information.